Okay, I'll call the West Richland City Council to meeting. The meeting to order December 6th at 6 p.m. Before we call the roll, I'll ask Stephanie to read our hybrid meeting rules, if you would, please, and then call roll.
Right, thank you. Tonight's meeting will be held in person with a virtual meeting component. If you are participating virtually, please make sure the name shown at the bottom of your video view is the name you would like the mayor to use. You can change this by right-clicking on the three dots in the upper corner of your video view and clicking rename. Audience members present in the council chambers will be called upon first during public comment periods. Those participating remotely should virtually raise your hand if you wish to speak. To virtually raise your hand, click on participants and then click on raise hand. If you are participating by phone only, press *9 to raise your hand. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. All right, roll call. Brent Gary,
Here.
Richard Bloom,
Here.
Fred Brink,
Here.
David Fetto,
Here.
May Hayes,
Here.
Kate Moran,
Present.
John Smart,
Here.
Ken Stoker.
Here.
Thank you. And I will ask Councilmember Bloom to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman. Council, the agenda is before you this evening. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. And this evening, we are joined by a number of our state patrol officers. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming, as well as our West Richland police officers. To introduce the new officer of the city of West Richland, I'll ask Chief Crago to come to the podium.
Thank you,
sir.
Mayor. Thank you, Council. All right, so tonight, it's another honor of mine to introduce the newest member of the department, Michael Benavidez. He's got about the shortest bio I think I've read to you guys, just letting you know, right up front. Anyway, he was born and raised in the Lower Valley. He lateraled to West Richland from the State Patrol, where he started on patrol. He worked for Washington State Patrol for about 6.5 years. He worked corrections before that for about 7 years with Yakima County. He has been married to his high school sweetheart for 14 years, and he has 3 kids and currently lives here in the Tri-Cities. Told you I was the shortest one ever. At this time, before we have him give his speech, we'll do the swearing in. So good step up. I state your name.
I, Michael Benavidez,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and I will faithfully
and I'll faithfully
and impartially perform
and impartially perform
and discharge the duties
and discharge the duties
of police officer
of police officer
of the City of West Richland,
for the city of West Richland,
according to the law,
according to the law
as to my ability.
and to the best of my ability.
Michael, before I ask you to, I'll have council introduce themselves to you, but it was a short bio, but I think there's a little bit more history, and you could probably share a little bit of that with the ladies and gentlemen behind you. And, you know, in council meetings, we don't do heckling or anything like that. So, you know, I'll let you throw some at them if they'd like, and if they'd like to speak as to how beneficial you have been to the Washington State Patrol. I would invite you folks to also make comment in regards to the service that Michael has performed. So share a little bit with you with us.
I moved over here in 2012 from the Lower Valley, from the Sunnyside Grandview area. I have 3 kids. Oldest one's 10, youngest one's 2. They keep me busy. Well, they keep more of my wife busy because usually I'm working nights or something. And then, yeah, my wife's a dental hygienist. And yeah, I'm ready to work in the city of West Richland and take every criminal that we can get off the road.
Well, thank you very much. We look forward to having you serve here in the city of West Richland. And while I ask my council to introduce themselves to you, I will throw the opportunity for anybody there to come to the mic. And after Michael is done with that, you can say a few words of him. So if you would, please come join us, Michael. Call you into my office later.
All right, I think that the troopers behind me, seeing as how they've lost the trooper to us. I'm not sure they want to say anything at this point, but anyway. There you go. That's awesome. Hey, thank you guys for coming out and supporting him though. It tells us a lot about his character and what we've done hiring him for West Richland. Thank you guys. So
if we could get a picture with all of the troopers as well as our officers together, that would be great as well.
Okay.
Chief.
Okay.
Give them just a couple seconds here and then we'll jump into this evening's agenda.
That makes them.
Thank you. Very good. Michael, this is the largest crowd we've ever had for swearing in, so you ought to be honored, man. That's great.
Yes.
No, when the troopers come, you got to stay for the whole meeting, though. That was one of the deals here. Yeah. All right. You guys be safe out there. Thank you for what you do. We appreciate it. Council, the consent agenda this evening includes the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting November 15th, 2022. The workshop on November 29th, 2022. A motion to confirm mayor's reappointment to the Park Board and the Planning Commission. A motion to authorize the mayor to execute professional services contract with Terra for road right-of-way acquisition associated with the SR 224 Red Mountain Transportation Improvement Project. Motion to accept South 38th and SR 224 signal project as complete. Motion to authorize the mayor to execute amendment 1 to the lease agreement for the former Tri-City Raceways for the Red Mountain Event Center. Motion to execute industrial wastewater user contract permit number WR 2023-001 with Vin Motions Wine. Motion to execute industrial wastewater user contract permit number WR 2023-002 with Red Mountain Estates LLC. The motion to execute the industrial wastewater user contract permit WR 2023-003 with Double Canyon. And then ordinance 2522 relating to where parking is prohibited at all times, amending West Richland Municipal Code 10.12.060L on Deer Street. If there's anyone from the audience who would like to speak to the consent agenda this evening, please raise your hand. I see no one in the audience. Stephanie, do you see anybody online?
I do not.
That council may have a motion to approve the consent agenda this evening.
I move to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. This is the first opportunity for citizen public comment this evening for items that are not on the agenda this evening. And if you would wish to provide comments, please come to the podium and state your name and residency for the record. And we have 3 minutes to comment. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, my name is Colin Chadgill. I live at 1134 Belmont Boulevard. I've been before this board before regarding bee issues. that I've had with my neighbor, Nicholas Pilfried, 6475 Cobalt Drive. On the paperwork that I just handed off to the mayor, I submitted a picture of what I woke up to on Sunday morning outside my bedroom window, 72 feet from my house. It is a picture of two beehives on top of a flower bed. In the initial nuisance report that I filed a complaint with the police department and that Officer Rodriguez took, Mr. Pilfrey stated on attachment 5527, the last paragraph, he stated that he will be relocating his hives from the property line to the raised garden beds once a killing frost arrives in the area. And over the winter, the colonies will be in that location to get maximum sunlight. He says currently Mr. Collins's wall is intact on that side of our shared property line. I'm assuming he is speaking about that one. On our property line, my wall is not intact. It has been partially taken down and will be completely taken down in the summer. Now, if you look at the actual rules for the beekeeping, which is 1754-103E. It says in rule number 3 that a barrier shall be provided at least 6 feet high. This clearly shows that a barrier has not been provided. He has a barrier on his property, but he has chosen to move the hives from where the confines are to another area on his property, according to him, to get maximum sunlight. I have one disagreement that with Officer Rodriguez and with Commander Clark, reference rule number 1, where it states the number of beehives shall be limited to 1 beehive per 4,356 gross square feet. It does not say for every. My understanding of and looking at the definition of per Black's Law Dictionary is that means for each. So that you must have 1 beehive for every 4,356 gross. Now you can cut that pie different ways. You could actually have them sit next together. If you have 1 pie of 486 and another pie. But based on the property of a 0.33 acre, there's no way that can happen. Furthermore, for him having to take his hives outside of his confinement during the winter times, it does not allow for that in the rules. It doesn't say that the rules only apply from March until December. Now, when I first brought this to the committee back in July, after I gave my statement, 3 of the council members came to me and spoke and supported and said, Mr. Mendenhall would help me out. And Mr. Mendenhall was great. And he sent me all kinds of emails and documents to find rules and to find a setup so that I could come with the rules. I'm sorry, am I expired?
I'm just reminding you. that
Oh, okay,
this is
oh, okay.
not an ongoing-
And I did that and I came here and then Mr. Mendenhall said that wasn't going to be possible, that if I wanted to get any rules changed, I was going to have to pay to have that done, to submit rules. Is that correct, Mr. Mendenhall? Am I stating that correctly?
To answer
Oh,
dialogue
okay,
back
I'm
and
sorry.
forth.
I'm sorry.
The
That was
conversation
my,
Has been had between the 2 of you, and I would suggest that the dialogue continues. So
okay, so what I am asking is that the council members who did not want Mr. Mendenhall to consider working with this any further, to go back and look at the police report, look at this evidence and reconsider why we need to consider rules on why these beehives don't work on 0.33 acres if they can't follow the rules for the whole year. That's what I'm here today. Thank you for your time.
I will ask Mr. Mendenhall at the end of the meeting to make comment in regards to the council, the suggestion that he gave you as far as your options that you have.
Okay, and I was thinking.
What else in the audience here? Yes, ma'am. Just naming the rest of it.
My name is Deborah Humphreys
City of it, excuse me.
and I live at 4705 Collins Road, West Richland, the lower end of Collins Hill. And I brought this traffic speeding issue up before to the city council a little over a year ago on November 19th of 2021. And again, about 3 weeks ago, I sent these new emails to all of our city council members, Mayor Brent Gary, Mr. Roscoe Slade, and Police Chief Thomas Grego. And I hope you all had a chance to read those emails. Since the beginning, we raised the speed limit from 25 to 30 miles per hour, adding new signage and fog lines. Unfortunately, the drivers are purposely ignoring these changes. We have minimal police traffic enforcement for various reasons I do not know or understand. There was a police task force that was working on this for a while, but I assure you, as of today, the high rate of speeding continues every day, 24/7. And you all have the data. We need some approved road calming devices or obstacles. Data confirms all of this. People are driving 70 miles per hour interstate speeds at our front yards and in the city limits, next to parked cars, picking up our mail, next to bicyclists, and next to pedestrians and kids that are walking up the hill and down the hill. And there are no sidewalks, and there are no true bicycle lanes, and there's no streetlights for protection. This is really a huge liability to the city because all of this is well documented. And I thank you for your time. And let's please put a stop to this insanity. It's gone on too long. 70 miles an hour is not acceptable in front of anybody's home. I have beautiful grandkids in the front yard, you know. It's just gotta end. I need help. We need help. Please. Thank you.
What else this evening for the audience? Yes. Name and place of residence. for the record.
Aileen Frederickson, and I'm 420 South 48th Avenue, and I'm just right off of Collins. So I access Collins Road when I leave my house, and I look up the hill, I see no cars. I pull out and they're there right on my tail. And I'll speed up to 25, but I know I have to stop in just a short distance. And they're, doing this at you and get out of my way. I've had people pass me off on the left-hand side when I'm going up the hill, and I make a left to turn on to 48. And they're in such a hurry because I'm going 25 that they have to pass me. And I mean, it really is ridiculous, just like Debbie said. And when I walk down to get my mail, I hear the cars. You can hear the roar of their engines coming down the hill. I step up and I purposely step way away from the road. And that fog, it's not safe. And I've parked my car, walked across the road to get my mail, and I look both ways because it's right there by bombing range. And I'm halfway across the road and they come around the corner off a bombing range and it's pedal to the metal. And if you're in the way, they're not slowing down, and they really don't. I've had people honk at me and it's like, hey, I'm in the road, I'm crossing the road, and it's not safe. And really something needs to be done before somebody gets killed. And it'll happen. I've seen cars go over the curb because they're texting. They're not paying attention. There's no regard for the residents at the bottom of Collins Road. There really isn't. They don't drive consciously. And I've seen people eating, texting, and just speeding. Bad. So anyway, thank you.
The audience this evening.
My name is Shanna Brown, and my residence is 3421 Lexington Way in West Richland. So I don't live on Collins Road anymore, but I grew up there, and I was one when my parents built their home on Collins Road. So I've seen it when it was a dirt road, and I would stand by the bus, wait for the bus stop and all those things. And we drive Collins Road nearly daily because we visit my parents or drop grandkids off or whatnot for help. And just recently, we were leaving my parents and my husband pulled out onto Collins Road, as we do very regularly. We had plenty of time and a car came up behind us, flailing their arms, flipping us off that we pulled out in front of them, which we did not. He tapped his brakes, gave her a warning that she was far too close to our car, continued to come across like there was an extreme emergency. He stopped at the stop sign, put it in park, got out of his car, and approached her car to ask her what was the extreme emergency that you can't go 30 miles per hour on this road. And she proceeded to, after that interaction, she followed us all the way on 240, dodging in and out of cars. And we watched her almost hit a pedestrian near Black Rock Coffee on Van Giesen. I mean, there's extreme aggression on that road. And I don't live there and I'm here to complain about it. So I know it's really important to the people that have lived there for 30 plus years that are elderly and they shouldn't be afraid to walk to their mailbox. It's really sad. Thank you.
Else in the audience this evening? We no one here. Stephanie, I see we have Ms. Burke with a hand up on line.
Yes, can you hear me?
Got you. You've got 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, yes. I am here in support of the community traffic neighborhoods. And I have also been approached by lots of parents in the Richland School District that are concerned about traffic safety around our schools, especially around the new school Desert Sky, and not having adequate stoplights for kids that are crossing the roads and for when we're taking our kids to and from school. It's just not enough thought put into where our kids are crossing roads and how safe it is for us. The other thing I want to comment on is we still don't have a light or anything to help us on South Highlands and Keene. When you're sitting at South Highlands and going to turn left onto Keene, if there's a car coming straight through on Keene and then a car in the lane to turn right onto South Highlands, you can't see the cars behind you. If you think someone is turning and you pull out, there's a car right there, you'll get. And why we don't have a light there yet. I came to the city
Kelly,
for that dangerous.
Can you speak a little
Let
louder?
me just tell you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
But my mom was killed on that corner of South Highlands and Keene. And they said they wouldn't do anything about it until there were more deaths. And I know there's been more deaths on that area. So let's fix it. Let's take the safety of our community serious, put our money there instead of putting money into all the raises that I see you're trying to propose for workers that are already paid at the top. Let's maybe cut some pay in the city workers. Thank you.
Anyone else online? If there is, put your hand up. Shelley, would you please put your hand down? Stephanie, do you see anyone else online?
I do not.
Done. We will go ahead and move on to ordinances, resolutions, motions, and public hearings. Items 8A and B are a public hearing and a resolution for the vacation of utility easement. And we have with us this evening our associate planner, Alicia Ransom. So Alicia, would you come present your staff report this evening, please?
Good evening. The application we have is for an easement vacation. The applicants are Russell and Pamela Warren. They live at 1074 South 54th Avenue. That is Willamette Heights, Section 6, Lot 165. The exhibit map is in your packet in attachment 2, and that shows what they're asking to vacate. They're asking to vacate the south 14 feet of the north 30 feet, except the west 30 feet, and the west 20 feet of the east 30 feet, except the south 30 feet. Again, looking at the exhibit map is a lot easier to understand what exactly is going on. These easements are the 30-foot easements recorded on the face of the plat of Willamette Heights, Section 6. The utilities did not, routed it out to utilities. We received no objection to the proposal. Public Works sent a memo approving the vacation request. We've received no public comments on the proposed vacation. The easement no longer serves any useful public purpose. It will, the request will make the easements match the previous easement vacation for the land patents. That was done in, I believe it was 2000, 2001, somewhere in there. And staff recommends that council vacate the easement.
All right, with that, I will go ahead and open the public hearing at 6:26. If you'd like to make comments to this item on the agenda, please come to the podium for those comments. Or if there's anyone virtually, raise your hand. See no one in the audience. Stephanie, do you see anybody online?
No.
Then I'll go ahead and close the hearing at 6:27. And resolution 6222, vacation of easement, VCA 008-2022. Will have a motion.
I move to pass resolution 6222 authorizing the vacation of a portion of 30-foot utility easements for file VACA 008-2022.
Motion and a second. Any questions, Steph, or to Alicia this evening? Councilmember Moran?
Thank you. I just have a quick question that I was just thinking of. For that property, there is still an easement along the west side along South 54th, right? So that if
Yes.
Zipley were to come by, they would still, okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Well. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, please. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to items 8C and D is another public hearing and a resolution for the vacation of utility easement. Again, Alicia will present her staff report.
Great. This one is also along South 54th. The applicants are Crystal and Ren Jerdebig, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. I've only seen it written. They have submitted an application. Their address is 985 South 54th. They're on short plat 3223 lot 2. It's also located within Willamette Heights, Section 6. Looking at the exhibit map in attachment 2, this one's a little bit trickier, but what they're asking for is the north 20 feet of the south 30 feet, except for the portion within AFN 2009-035548 and the east 20 feet of the west 30 feet of lot 2. Obviously, the legal descriptions that the surveyors provide us is more complicated than that, but that's essentially what they're asking for. Again, we routed it out to utilities. They did not object to the proposal. Public Works sent a memo approving the vacation request. We've received no public comment on the proposed vacation. And the easement no longer serves any useful public purpose.
And staff recommends that council vacate the easement.
I'll open this public hearing at 6:30. If anybody'd like to provide comment to this vacation, please come to the podium. I see no one in the audience. Stephanie, do you see anyone on the line this evening?
I do not.
Being no one, I will close this hearing at 6:30. And resolution 6322, utility easement vacation, the ACA -009-2022. Do I have a motion, please?
Pass resolution 6322. Authorizing the vacation portion of 30-foot utility easement from BA's for file BACA 009-2022.
Second.
Motion and a second. Council, any questions, myself or for? Alicia? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, council. Okay, thank you, Alicia. We're gonna keep this Alicia show going on here with items 8E and F, the public hearing and ordinance adopting the 2022 comprehensive plan docket and corresponding rezones. So with that, Alicia, do you have a staff report for us this evening?
We have two map amendments on the comprehensive plan docket. The comprehensive plan docket, we established this back in, I believe it was July, but yes. So we established the docket. Oh, excuse me, it was in August. To review these two map amendments. The first map amendment is for Indian Eyes. It's 0.021 acres in size. It's currently designated as medium density residential, and they've requested to change the designation to high intensity commercial. And that's they've also requested the accompanying rezone to go along with that. The property owner has several parcels to the south along Van Giesen. And this is part of their effort to remodel the old Moose Lodge and improve the surrounding property. So they have, I believe it's either 3 or 4 parcels that they are looking to combine, but they would like them all to have the same zoning. So the portion that's along Desert View Drive and Deer Street, it's currently designated as medium density residential, and they would like it to be high intensity commercial to conform with the rest of their property that they have along Van Giesen. The let's see. Public Works reviewed the proposed amendment and said that the demand for water and sewer services will decrease if the comprehensive plan designation of the property is changed. They're really looking at what that water and sewer capacity is for the properties for the changes to ensure that we can serve them. Let's see. And then map amendment 2 is we call it parcel 11. It's on the southeast corner of Paradise and Van Giesen. It's currently designated high intensity commercial, and the property owner has requested to change a portion to high density residential. And it's the easternmost portion of that parcel. There are maps in the packet for you to refer to, showing what the asks are. That's along with the accompanying rezone. An important thing to keep in mind with this is that the area to the east, that property owned by the Alexanders, applied for a comprehensive plan amendment last year, and they were approved. So they changed from high density residential to medium density residential. So that medium density residential is currently abutting commercial. Adding this high density residential would create a buffer between the commercial and the lower density residential. And it's medium density, but it'll be a transition from higher intensity to lower intensity. Again, Public Works approved the proposed amendment and said that the water and sewer capacity for this this parcel has already been accounted for because this parcel was previously, the entire parcel was previously designated as high density residential in the past. And again, they're just asking for a portion of the parcel. The associated rezones with this with the comprehensive plan amendment docket would be for the Indianized project. That's that first parcel, that first map area would be RM10 to commercial general. And then for parcel 11, it would be commercial general to multifamily residential. Staff recommends that the amendments be approved. And the planning commission voted on November 10th to recommend to council that they approve the amendments. They originally discussed the issue on October 13th, but the public hearing was rescheduled due to an issue with the city's alarm system, locking the front door. Staff wasn't aware. No one was able to access the meeting, so we rescheduled. So people had an opportunity to comment. So we've accounted for that in the documentation for this. The EC subcommittee had several opportunities to discuss the comprehensive plan docket. They discussed most recently on November 29th and recommended do pass. And then for the council's reference, the suggested motion is included on the first page of the staff report. I believe it's also highlighted. Thank you.
With that, I will open the public hearing at 6:36. If you'd like to provide comment to this comprehensive plan amendment docket, please come to the podium. I see no one in the audience. Stephanie, do you see anybody online this evening?
I do not.
Being none, we'll close the hearing at 6:37. And ordinance 2622, adopt the 22 comp plan amendment docket. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve ordinance 2622, adopting the findings and conclusions as contained in the staff report, and approve the 2022 comprehensive plan amendment docket file number comp 003-2022 and the associated rezone based upon the findings of fact and conclusions of law as recommended by the planning commission.
Motion is second. Council, any questions of Alicia or questions, comments amongst yourself? We'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Brink for Alicia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The only thing I wanted to mention was what Alicia pointed out on November 29th, myself, Councilmember Smart, Councilmember Fetto, as members of the Community Development Committee, Subcommittee, moved to approve this. So I would ask my fellow council members give appropriate consideration to that fact. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Brink. Councilmember Moran.
Thank you. I definitely would like to say I'm not a fan of saying that high density residential is considered a buffer, but I understand for zoning, it's common standard practices. But I'm wondering, when we've looked at the comprehensive plan amendments, just a thought that occurred to me was, have we seen, and I feel like we have seen in general, a 1-for-1 acreage of commercial changing to residential and vice versa? Is that accurate? It just seems like there's an uneven exchange here is all.
These are, well, the first map amendment, the Indianized, that it is a little bit of a funny situation where they're just trying to get conformity with what they own. In the past, I believe that we've seen, especially last year with that amendment that the Alexanders did, they weren't doing commercial to residential, but they were exchanging, and we typically see more of that. But and I'm only speaking in the past couple of years that I've been with the city, but that's mostly what we've seen.
I'll also ask Eric Mendenhall, Community Development Director, to weigh in on that question as well.
Yeah, so just to reiterate what Alicia said, we do see these applications come in. Last year, we saw one that was an exact trade, tit for tat for the different zone. in most cases, there is not that situation where they're coming in, they're asking for us to upzone or downzone property based on what the market need is for them at the time. And so we're looking at that and reviewing it based upon what resources the city has to allocate towards it and other factors that go into reviewing a comp plan. But it's not an exact swap that we're looking for. In any case, just that was the case last year for a very bizarre reason. It's just how it turned out.
Okay, and the main reason is just because I'm hoping that we are not going to continue to end up taking off the commercial and making it residential so that we end up with much more residential than intended. And also with that being on a major road, I hate to lose the commercial on that, but I understand the reasoning behind it for this one. I just hope it's a rare case.
Wait,
And
go
This
ahead.
one's on a pretty steep slope too, not steep slope, but it's on a slope. So doing commercial on that slope would just be professional offices. And those are typically on the lower end of need for retail or in commercial use. So this kind of fit the bill for a rezone and making it go that way. And he's been going back and forth like a fish on this property with the colors on the map. So it just kind of puts it back to where it used to be.
Very good. Councilmember Bloom?
I just want to clarify on the amendment along Deer Street. We're talking about only that triangle cross property that basically was the old parking lot for the Moose Lodge. Right?
Mhm.
So it really isn't, it isn't developable as residential anyway. It's just almost a remnant.
It does meet the minimum lot size for the property. If I remember correctly, it's 0.21 acres.
Right.
But it's not
Odd shape.
it is an odd shape. We would have to look at the building envelope pretty closely on that.
Councilmember Smart?
Oh, I have to push the button before I speak, sorry. Thank you for your presentation on that Deer Street property. Can you describe what the notification was to the neighbors across the street, and did we receive any comments from them?
The neighbors across the street received the notification. It's everyone within 600 feet of the property. We create a buffer and we pull their address information and send them the notice that we create. There were no official comments received. I did have someone, they called and they asked some questions about why are they doing this? Is it going to be just that parcel? Are they going to sell it off? And now that we're going to have commercial accessing off of Deer Street. So some concern about it, but we did have a conversation, but they didn't submit any official comments.
So I just want to make sure that everybody's clear. We did make good communication with the neighbors across the street who would undoubtedly be the most affected by this.
Mhm.
And you're saying that there was no ultimate negative comment about it. They just were satisfied with the answers that we gave them. And do we have any information about what the access intentions might be off of Deer Street for commercial use?
I would have to look at we do have their plans. They're in the process of permitting currently. I believe their final walkthrough is scheduled for later this month. But if I remember correctly, and I'd have to look, they are planning that portion to be fenced in.
Okay, yeah. And I was on the subcommittee and approved this as well. I think it's a reasonable ask. I just want to make sure that we were on record for having asked the neighbors and got their feedback. Thank you.
Go ahead.
We did everything that we were required to do by law.
Councilmember Stoker?
Well, if I may, I actually drive by that frequently. And they're putting in a really nice 6-foot stone wall right now. So it looks really nice. I've been nothing but pleased with what Indian Eyes has done to the old Moose Lodge. I mean, yeah, I'm sorry to see the Moose Lodge go away, but the building structure is it's pretty awesome. And the stone wall is most of the way down. It's the property line for Deer Street right now. So there's going to be, looks like it's going to be a pretty big solid gate to get in off of there, but it's definitely a solid wall. I don't want anybody to try to put their car through that one.
You're good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, council. Now we have the second rezone ordinance that corresponds with the 2022 comprehensive plan docket. May I have a motion for that one? Alicia, do you have a location of that motion
That 8G?
right handy?
Is that 8G?
So yeah, so the way that it was set on the agenda was the public hearing, the comp plan docket, and then the two subsequent rezone. So I believe the motion is
Got it.
in that
Aye.
original
Okay.
staff
move-
report.
I move to adopt ordinance 2722.
28, 22.
28,
20, 20, excuse me, 27, 22, that one, correct. Next
to
one.
rezone parcel number 13108 303 0003 018 from. Nah, I got the wrong motion. I withdraw my motion.
We'll roll up another one. Anybody else got it up there?
Do we know what page this is on?
That's the right motion, but the wording's wrong. Is it? The wording says light industrial to commercial general. We're going residential. I'm
I've got-
sorry.
I've got a paper.
Well, correct
Yeah,
motion.
I've got a paper copy here.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's going to be the same as this.
Alicia, do you have a paper copy with you too? That's fine.
It could be as simple as passing a motion to, or recommending a motion to pass ordinance 2722 as presented in the staff report.
Okay, I'll try that one. Okay, I move to adopt ordinance 2722 to rezone parcel number 13108 303 0003 018 based on conclusions and findings contained within the staff report.
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. That moves us to ordinance 2822, the same rezone 0002-2022 parcel 11.
I move to adopt ordinance 2822 approving file number RZNE 0002-2022 to rezone parcel number 1-0197-300-0007-000. Based upon the conclusions and findings contained within the 2022 CPA docket staff report.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any more things that need to be asked of Alicia or questions like yourself? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, council. Appreciate that. Moving on to items 8G is an ordinance to amend the 2021-2022 budget. We have our finance director, Aaron Gwen, to present our staff report this evening.
Right. Thank you, Mayor Gary. Good evening, council, audience. This evening, I'm presenting the 16th budget amendment of the 21-22 biennial budget. The majority of these items are cleanup or true items for the end of our biennium. For the general fund, this amendment recognizes the variance in indirect cost allocation plan, also referred to as ICAP, allocations to the different departments within the general fund. Also in the general fund, this amendment appropriates additional expenditures for voter costs. For Fund 002, Cumulative Reserve Fund, this amendment recognizes the revenue and associated costs with selling the Belmont property to the future Dutch Bros. Also in Fund 002, this amendment appropriates an additional $28,000 for staff time costs associated with the park plan update. In Street Fund 101, this recognizes revenue and additional appropriations for damages to street property. This can occur when a motorist runs over a street sign, the city fixes the sign and then sends the motorist the invoice. So we see both the expenditure and the revenue in this case. So we're truing up that. For the Park Impact Fund 104, this amendment appropriates an additional $3,000 to cover costs associated with refunding a building permit that was originally issued in 2021, but refunded in 2022. This covers the portion of the refund associated with park impact fees. And that's significant in the accounting world. You can't just, if it's a revenue received in 21, we can't just reverse the revenue when we're issuing a refund in a different year. We have to issue it as an expense. So that's the significance. In Fund 121 for library services, this amendment recognizes $25,000 of additional property tax revenue collected and appropriates an additional $9,300 to cover costs associated with the library contract with Mid-Columbia Libraries. In Fund 355, the Transportation Improvement Fund, this amendment appropriates an additional $21,618 for costs associated with ICAP. In Fund 401, the Water Sewer Operating Fund, we're recognizing an additional $100,000 in water collection revenue and appropriating an additional $76,000 for additional costs of water purchase from the city of Richland. The increased costs are primarily due to well number 2 being out of operation. For the Solid Waste Fund 405, this amendment recognizes additional revenue in the amount of $195,830 and increases in appropriations in the amount of $211,850 to cover the costs for the EDS disposal services and taxes. This increase is primarily due to the rate increase that occurred in October. For the Water System Development Fund 441, we're recognizing an additional $150,000 in development fees and $110,167 in grant funds from the Washington State Department of Ecology for the Well 10 Aquifer Storage and Recovery Project, also known as ASR. Appropriations are being increased by $134,666 for increased costs to ICAP taxes and the Well 10 ASR project. For the Sewer System Development Fund 442 is recognizing an additional $220,000 for additional system development fees collected. Appropriations are being increased in the amount of $31,500 for additional expenses associated with ICAP taxes and building permit refund that was originally issued in 2021, but refunded in 2022. This amendment authorizes an increase in the 21-22 revenues in the amount of $1,160,677 and appropriations in the amount of $543,008, bringing the $543,008, bringing the total revised expenditures to $112,998,095 and a total revised budget to $137,021,674. And staff recommends passing the ordinance.
Thank you, Aaron. Excuse me. Thank you, Aaron. Is there anyone from the audience who'd like to speak to this biennial budget amendment? I see no one in person. Stephanie, do you see anybody online?
I do not.
With that, council, may I have a motion, please?
I move to pass ordinance 2922, amending the city of West Richland's 2021-2022 biennial budget.
Second.
Motion and second. Council questions for Aaron? Councilmember Bloom?
Real quick question. It's not the end of the year, so we're gonna have another one?
I hope not.
I can promise you we will.
All right. Very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Council, item J is ordinance 24-22, adopting the 23-24 biennial budget. Council, if you recall, this ordinance was presented at previous council meeting, which also included public hearing, and we all had a workshop, and I thank Mayor Pro Tem Brink for chairing that on November 29th for me while I was in travel. I'll discuss the budget further. And currently, we don't have any other information to present to council in regards to this ordinance. So therefore, do I have a motion to adopt this ordinance?
I move to pass ordinance 24-22, adopting the budget for the city of West Richland for the 2023-2024 biennium.
Second.
Motion and second. Council, any questions of Aaron or staff or comments amongst yourselves? Councilmember Moran?
Thank you. Just a quick question. I'm wondering, with the amendment we made, that doesn't change the ending from the previous, so it wouldn't affect anything that would need to be changed on this budget, correct?
That's correct. So this budget is based on estimates of where we were ending already. And then what we'll do, accounting staff will go through and true up the end of 2022. And then in probably about March of 23, you'll see a budget amendment that comes through and trues up all those beginning balances.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Brink?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Mayor Gary mentioned, on November 29th, I did preside over the workshop. I just want to thank staff for the work that they did leading up to that and spending the 3 hours or so that we engaged each other in that workshop. And also my fellow council members, I want to thank you for your preparation, your thoroughness, and the questions that you asked. I think we spent a significant amount of time discussing this, and I know staff spent a lot of time preparing this. So I just want to pass on my gratitude to everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Brink. Appreciate that. Seeing no one else, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, please. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, council. Moving on to K, which is resolution 64-22, that's 8K and 8I is a resolution adopting the city's salary schedule for 2023 and 2024. And amending the city's personnel policies, total compensation principle. And we have HR resource managers, Ms. Mathers, here this evening to report. Selena.
Good evening, council. The first thing I would like to say is that we do have 2 resolutions attached to one staff report. So when I talk, I'm going to pull those apart so that it's easier to get through this and pass everything. So we will start with resolution 64-22, which is the 23-24 salary schedule. So we did talk about this a little bit the other day, so I'm going to try and expand upon some of that. And I think one comment I'd like to make, which is probably more for the citizens and for council, but the salary schedule is a range for every position. It's not the person's pay. I know we had a question come in that highlighted the top number, the max salary for every range, and sort of insinuated that that was employees' pay rates, but that's the top of the range. And we don't have a single person here making the top end of it. We tried to set the salary schedule up so that people are more in the minimum to mid section of it, of course, depending upon years with the city and experience, but that was the idea in constructing this. So just to clarify that we are talking about a range here and not an actual salary earned. Another thing I'd like to highlight is that it has been 4 years since we've completed a thorough analysis at this level. 2 years ago, well, because in 2018, I'll step back. In 2018, that's when we did a complete salary and benefit survey, very extensive. And then in 2020, because we had just done that, we did a high level salary review, very minor into the benefits, really didn't do a heavy level job description analysis. It was really to just kind of make sure we're not really off key at a par with that. So now it's been 4 years and now this is a complete salary and benefit review. So kind of going into this a little bit, we'll start with the one thing that we did change this year, which was mentioned before, was that we are looking at Kennewick, Richland, Pasco as the comparables. And that's looking at where did people leave when they left the city. And we had 48% people that resigned since 2018. They stayed in government. And out of those people that stayed in the government, 82% went to Kennewick, Richland, or Pasco. And then out of the remaining 48% that stayed in government, we had 35% went into the private sector and 16% retired. So that's where people are going when they leave our city. In creating the salary schedule, I think we hit on this a little bit, but I'll spend a little bit more time today just going over what goes into creating that. So obviously we pull the comps from Kennewick, Richland, Pasco, and we learn on each position what their minimum range is and what their high end range is. And a lot of that is reading job descriptions to make sure we're comparing like to like. One thing we found, which wasn't new, but it just highlights one of our issues, is that each position, well, not each position, many positions at the city of West Richland, they're very comparable to 2 or 3 positions at other cities. We find that somebody here at West Richland has to have a larger breadth of knowledge. There's less people in a department, less people to assign the positions to. So it ends up being that one person usually holds a larger variety of job duties. So once we look at that, we compare job descriptions, we look at the other cities, we pull out the very low end and the very high end to see what the full range is. What is that full scope? And then we also average the lows and average the highs so that we can get an idea. We want to pull that number together a little bit and get a shorter number. And it also helps because sometimes there's a low end outlier or a high end outlier that's just off the charts and kind of doesn't really go with the rest of the numbers. And then we take that and we look at actual salaries and we look to make sure, you know, we usually have a few people that are below the minimum. This time, I think we've done a pretty good job of letting council know that maintenance department, they were the department that needed some shoring up. They were quite a bit below the minimum. So we really spent some time focusing on them. Then we actually take the salary ranges that we come to at that point, we reconfigure them into departments so we can make sure each department has a correct flow, and where you have overlap, it makes sense and it's not encroaching upon, you know, the next position up too much. Then we lay out everything in a line and we look at the entire city from top to low and we make sure that is a correct line. And then we actually look at each position on its own merit. And this is where some adjustments can be made. What's it take to hire for that position? Would it take 1 people or 2 people to replace who we have working that position? If they've been there 20 years, it might take 2 people. We have a couple positions where, you know, the employee is so proficient and they've been here so long, we're not going to replace them with 1 person. What's going on with the profession? Is there an abundance of people in the profession in our area, or is there a shortage? So those are the types of things that we look at in each position outside of just the typical numbers. And then we want some longevity here. Every year we've really done a lot to the salary schedule. And it feels like we're always behind and we're always trying to catch up. So one of the things that we noticed this year, people that are applying, applicants, they're asking what is the salary range. They want to know that when they come here, they're not going to hit the top end in a few years. They want growth. They want to know that we see a future for the positions. So we took the top end and we put, ideally we'd like to go out to 2026 if possible. So we added 3% a year to create, to sort of combat inflation and to create some longevity out of this salary schedule. So ideally we would hope that, other than maybe a few moderations or altercations to it, that we're really looking at getting through 2026 with this salary schedule to a large degree. And I also wanted to point out that council had asked that we reduce the minimum end on a couple wages. I think the most popular one that was talked about was the public works director. So the minimum entry level range of that, we went from 15,000 to 13,000. That matches with police chief now. I believe there was some comments about how they should be the same. Then we also took city engineer and reduce that from 13,000 to 11,500. And then we also took the capital improvements project manager from 11,500 to 11,000. We left the finance director and the community development director and the police chief where they were at. So, please give us some feedback on that. But I just wanted to point out that we did make some alterations based on what was suggested. That really concludes what sort of the update on the salary schedule portion of this. If council has any questions.
So with that, I'll ask anybody at the audience if they have any comments in regards to this agenda item this evening. I see no one here. Do we have anybody virtually?
It looks like we have two people.
Recognize Ms. Nelson for a 3-minute opportunity comment. Ms. Nelson, go ahead.
Hi, am I being heard?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Hi, I can appreciate the complexity of this issue, and it's a personal one too. And I wanted to say a few words regarding this proposed pay schedule. It is difficult for the average citizen to really grasp the complexity of this issue when I really dug into it this week. I wanted to just say a few things, so just bear with me. Pasco's got an operating budget about almost 7 times what West Richland has. Pasco's interim city manager makes about $16,790 a month. It just seems highly illogical to this resident that our city public works director should make about 20 or 92% of the Pasco city manager salary when we have only 21.4% of Pasco's population. Ditto that for all of our city administration's senior staff. Now, I do recognize the need to offer competitive salaries to attract and keep talented and highly competent employees, but these salaries they just don't make sense in light of the budget tightening that the council is planning. I just read the amended agenda packet on page 243. Written, supervisors and directors at West Richland are working managers. In larger cities, directors have a large staff to handle the workload. This makes it harder to recruit for supervisory positions at West Richland. We've had multiple people apply for a supervisory position thinking the bulk of their job is management, only to retract their application when they realize the amount of actual work involved. So I'm suggesting, why would we not hire an assistant, create some more job positions within our town? And using these comparables, Kennewick, Richland, and the salary and benefits survey to justify these increases is questionable to me at the very least. West Richland's not the only municipality to lose staff to neighboring jurisdictions. We lose some people to our neighbors, but we also get staff from Richland and Kennewick. This is the nature of this industry. When you work in the public sector, people are going to move around. I do realize this need to offer competitive salaries to keep and attract these employees, but let's really think and be savvy about this. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. And I see the next individual. Lisa, if you go ahead and drop your hand, I appreciate it. We got looks like Harry Mays. Harry, you got 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Harry Mays, as you just said. My only comment is I just have a problem with the public works director making more than the police chief, because I believe in the security and the safety of the area that I stay in. And I just don't think we even have enough police around here in West Richland. And I do happen to live right next to the new police department. And I just think some of this money that we're giving to some of these public people just need to be better distributed, especially to the police force, so we can have just better security in the area. That's all.
Thank you for your comments. I see we have Shelley Burt. Harry, you want to drop your hand, please? And Shelley, you need to unmute. Shelley, you're muted.
Sorry, I had to wait for you guys to unmute me. I'm just a little bit surprised listening to this presentation and that she's comparing these to Pasco, Kennewick, and Richland. How about comparing to same size cities around us? I mean, that made no sense. I'm sitting here listening, thinking, just let's use some common sense. And when was the last time somebody came in from outside and did a complete audit of how we're running our city and how we're managing all these positions and did a complete assessment? Because frankly, after listening to that presentation, I will be attending more regularly to these meetings and I will have more community members paying closer attention. This is very worrisome. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online this evening? Shelley, if you please put your hand down. Stephanie, do you see anyone else?
I do not.
Thank you. With that, resolution 6422, council, do I have a motion?
I move to pass resolution 64-22, repealing and replacing the 2021-2022 salary schedule.
Second.
Motion is second. Council with any questions of Selena? Clarifying number of comments this evening. Councilmember Moran.
Thank you. And first, Selena, I want to thank you for responding to the email that you sent to me. It did answer some questions that I had, so I appreciate that very much. And I want to say that first off, I am not the subject matter expert when it comes to figuring out salaries that people should get. I'm just basing this off of what feels right, and that may not be what is accurate for salaries and for hiring purposes. So I want to acknowledge that for certain. In case others were wondering what the email was, I had asked Selena to explain a little bit more about the way that we had gotten to the numbers that we had for this. And due to sort of more of a focus on the public works director range, she had focused specifically on that, which I appreciate, and talked about how we had compared the comparables between Kennewick, Pasco, Richland, and then looked at the highs, the lows, and then the averages. And all of that, I am 100% behind. Absolutely. I understand what Ms. Burt was saying in regards to looking at smaller cities, but in all honesty, it is absolutely correct that, like you were saying, we lose employees to Pasco, Richland, Kennewick, and we will get them from there. So we really need to be more comparable in price to them. Absolutely, 100% agree. The issues that I'm starting to run into is, so let's see, verify employees not below the minimum. That's the third step. Fourth step, verify salary ranges within departments are accurate with the person at the top getting the more pay. Get that. Verify that within the city, that's all correct. But then the sixth step, to analyze the position on its own merit. That gets to the point where I'm a little bit concerned that we're moving past the comparables, and maybe that's just because I'm not the subject matter expert in this. I acknowledge that. But the steps for that involve how much would it hurt the city to hire someone without public works director experience? A lot, and I agree, that is true. Engineers in short supply in the Tri-Cities due to projects out at the area. Will we be able to find someone at this level of experience? May need to recruit from outside the area. Also agree. Current Public Works Director planning expansion of the city. What would it take to find someone with experience in major growth, including expansion of treatment plant, water supply, et cetera? Also agree. What sort of ripple effect would we have if the Public Works Director left? Would we be able to keep our city engineer? Agree. Can one person do the job of our current director? Should we consider a deputy director in addition to a director? And I agree with all of that. However, I'm not sure that that says that we should pay our public works director more than what other cities are paying, because in the end, and I don't think that we should pay them less. I absolutely do not think that we should pay them less. I want to make that very clear. But if we're first looking at this where we want to we want to keep them, and the problem is if we lose them, we have a problem. I think there's a big concern if we're make or break only with one person. That's a huge problem that relates more to what council can control. And that concerns me, that we're saying one person is going to make or break us. And if we're talking about, would we be able to keep our city engineer? I hope that it wouldn't be something where it would be a ripple effect of losing people, but I think that some of this might relate to having a succession plan. Again, I don't believe that's something within the council's purvey. I think that we're solely looking at the salary. So again, focusing back on that, I appreciate that you talked about how we want to focus more on going out, not just to the 2-year budget, but the 4-year, which makes a bit more sense why it's larger. And I was just looking at the public work director, just because that was what the email was about, and looking at the previous range of 12,000 a month to 15,000 a month, and then looking at the comparables, and the only one that has so far been approved for the next cycles is Pasco. So for Pasco, their public works director went from a maximum, because they only have maximums, not minimums. Their maximum went from 14,000 a month to 14,700 a month maximum. And that was for all of their directors' positions. So that was a 5% increase. So I thought, okay, if we look at the 5% increase, and I'm assuming that's probably going to be about the same for the others. If we look at a 5% increase for just going from that maximum, then the maximum for the first year and then having it as the second year. So 2 years of having a 5% raise would only go to 16,537 and 50 cents a month. Was that so that with the 18,000 per month didn't make sense. But if we are going to 4-year, that makes a bit more sense, but then seems like the others are too low for the high. So I'm just trying to figure out, because it seems like there was something that changed once we got to above. Honestly, it seems like the big thing that changed was the public work director. Everybody else seems to be pretty much in line with what I had expected, but that one just seems to go further. And I'm curious as to why. And I want to make sure that we're focusing on the position and the salary range itself, as we should.
Okay, I'm gonna go back.
You need to have her summarize her question.
Sorry, there's probably a lot of things I want to hit on in there. Let's start with one of the comments, because we're delving a lot into the public works position. So I wanted to give you an idea of what we're looking at. Perhaps if we talked about another position, it'll give you an idea of the concept behind each one instead of focusing so much on one. Because yeah, the public works director position, I know that's what you're curious in. But when we look at a position for its own merit, take something totally innocuous, like a building inspector. In 2022, we added a building inspector 2. So now when we look at the building inspector 1 position, we can start lower because now we have somebody highly skilled. And so now we have somebody in-house to train, somebody that has the knowledge that's in-house. So I can start with a lower, I can lower that minimum range for building inspector 1. So that's how we're moving off the comps. We're not totally blowing the comps out of the water. We're taking, here's what the comp is. Now, here's what I can do because we're in this position here. I can move this a little lower. So that's kind of the idea. You don't blow it out of the water. It just might give you a slight adjustment. And the 3% increase is all the way out to 2026 because I'd like to go 2 budget cycles. And when we did the comps, we're looking at 2022 numbers, 2022. So that I just tried to keep it equal throughout. So if somebody, came out with 2023, in fact, when you look at maintenance, I did a whole nother grid for maintenance for 2023 because they've got their collective bargaining agreements together. So I kind of pulled that out separately because we did want to consider that when doing our range. I didn't really do it in the comp analysis, but I did reference that later to make sure I was still within the right range. I think that hit it all. I think the biggest thing was pulling the 3% out to 2026. It actually brought it out to 8,200 and something. And I like even numbers, so I pulled it back to 18,000. But that's to get it out to 2026, the 2025, 2026 budget.
So when you're talking about 3%, you're saying that just for easy math, if we're looking at just a salary of 15,000 a month, if we times that by 1.03, that would be for that next year. And then if we times it again by 1.03, that would be for the next year, because I was timing by 0.105.
For
And
1 year
for
for the budget.
For if I were looking at 15,000 a month, if I were to times that by 1.05 and then times that by 1.05 or times the 15,000 by 1.1025, then I get 16,535 and 50 cents.
And
per
that
month.
would be for 2024.
Yes,
Yeah. So then I'm trying to pull it out to 2026.
right. But you were saying 3%, and
Yes.
I'm using 5% to get that number.
I'm using 3% on the 16,000. The max. When I got the high low and you've got the max there, I've got 16,000, then do 1.03 out to 2026. I actually think it's on the email I sent you, if that helps. I think there's a little grid there, and I think it did budget 23, 24, and then budget.
Yes, and I see that.
Did I
For
do
the
that?
longevity.
Maybe
it's-
I didn't send that to you. I thought I did a little synopsis of pulling that out. Maybe not.
So the 3% is assigned to the previous, just looking at the previous maximum. Is that what we're talking about?
No, when you take the high low and the averages, and then that step like 2 and 3 right in there. So going with the 16,000, see how it's 16,237? If you just use 16,000 and pull that out 3% a year, but using the high number in that would be part of the analysis portion of realizing what this position is. So I'm taking a higher number instead of a lower number and building out. So let's say that we did a high end of 16,000, and then you do 3% for 2023, 3% for 2024, 3% 2025, and 3% for 2026. So you're right about 18,000. And I do round to 18,000, not 17,934. That's just my own little stupid thing. I'm sorry.
Yes, yeah.
Councilmember Bloom?
I just want to reiterate something I said during the workshop. To compare salaries between Richland, Kennewick, Pasco, and West Richland, one has to realize that you're living within the Tri-Cities. And so it may be inappropriate to compare salaries for people in cities where the cost of living is lower. And maybe the same population, but again, the consideration of population growth, pressure, and other aspects. We have a bigger challenge in West Richland as far as budget goes, and it's a harder job. you know, I've been in positions where I was a one-man show and it's a tough job. It's much easier to take a position where you have other fall guys to push it up, to push the work off on. So, yeah, I don't see the salary ranges as being inappropriate. And they are set up to be, you're not planning another adjustment for 4 years.
I would like to thank you. We had a really great discussion in the finance committee. And you had a lot of great ideas that went into this, and it kind of helped build the salary schedule, putting people from minimum to mid and having some room to grow. So, you know, a lot of that discussion went into here.
Councilmember Hayes.
Thank you, Mayor. I think my comments go back, I brought up the last session. There seems to be a lot of focus on that, on the one, Public Works. And I don't think people sit back and pay attention to what work has been done, what money has been brought in by Public Works. The grants, everything, it would be a very long list. And I don't think the salary rate, especially it's going out to 2026, is unacceptable at all. And I think you have to look back on the positions, not just Public Works, but all the positions and what people are, what they're bringing to the table and what they've brought to the table for how many years. And our city would not be where we are today without the workforce that we have backing us. And I would hate to lose any of our key people because we did not pay them appropriately. And when you really look at what they brought in, what they've done, I think across the board, all the key staff people have been amazing in what they've done for the city, and this, they have brought our city to where we are today. So.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Smart.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Selena, I just wanted to, I appreciate you looking at those minimums, and I had only really done my homework on a half a dozen or maybe 10 of them. And I know that you changed a number of them, and I appreciate that. So that avails my concern for a few of them. I just want to have you help me with some other homework that I didn't get a chance to do. And that is, can you tell me that none of the current new salary scale has minimums that would necessitate an automatic raise for somebody from the old scale? Is that true? Right?
One thing that was actually built into this budget was an increase for maintenance. So to give you an idea, like most of maintenance, this will not, like if we just give them the performance increase, that would not compensate for it. When we went to finance committee, I believe what we had talked about was it could be as much as $3 an hour per person to get them up to speed. But that wasn't everybody. We had people that didn't quite need that much. So, you know, there are people that it might be $1 an hour to get them up to speed, but the entire maintenance department is so far below the comps that we do have it built in the budget to give them a raise outside of what is here to get them into the salary range. Yes.
Okay, so thanks for pointing that out. And so I think what I'm looking at is so like a maintenance to, okay, so you, and I can't tell because the maximum in the old range doesn't it doesn't, so it's not absolutely necessary, but you're saying it is going to happen for some people, and that's
Yes.
I guess I leave that up to.
I would say it's
managing
almost
budget.
all of maintenance.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. And then I'd just like to reiterate my general comment that I understand that the maximum amounts are not what our staff are getting paid
Oh,
necessarily.
right. Yes.
I would be putting my resume in pretty quick if that were the case.
Not even close.
Yeah. So but I appreciate the need for the range over the period of time that we are that the salary schedule will be in effect, I hope. And I think my my critical comments will come with the next part of this.
Okay.
So I'm good with this. I just want to make that statement. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Brink.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Smathers, I just want to thank you personally here in a public forum because you and I have engaged in several dialogues back and forth on pay compensation, not just salaries, but a complete compensation package. I appreciated the depth and knowledge in your responses, and I just want to thank you. We are much better off with you working in the human resources. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Brink. Seeing no one else, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, please. Motion carries unanimous. Now we're gonna move on to motion to adopt resolution 6522. If I could have a motion for that one.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
I don't believe we got the staff report on that.
It's the one staff report, two resolutions.
Second half,
Yeah,
kind of breaking it out here. Don't want to float all in one pile.
I got it.
Stephanie
I
didn't make
got it.
me redo the staff
Alright.
report.
I move to pass resolution 6522, amending the. Oh, we're doing just the salary schedule. Oh, we already did. Oh,
This
okay.
one,
Oh, we're on L. Okay. I
total
move to pass
compensation
resolution
principle.
6522, amending the city personnel policies, total compensation principle.
A motion and a second.
Second.
Second, I actually pulled the paper out. here, so if anybody knew it, I would pass it on. All right, questions of Ms. Mathers this evening? Comments? Councilmember Moran.
I just have a question. I thought that we didn't really have this staff report yet tonight to go over what these specific changes were. Did we want to do those?
Actually, for the total compensation principle, there are two main parts to this. This has the pay for performance and it has the COLA. So the pay for performance is, we already have a pay for performance program, as you guys know. The difference would be that we're asking to change it from a max of 3 or 3.5% to 4% and 4% across the board. Because right now, if you're, you look at the mid on the salary schedule, if you're below, you can get up to 3.5%. If you're above, you can only get up to 3%. So we're just looking at making that one number for everything and 4% for the whole board. And then the second thing that's in this is the COLA. Now we're looking at a flat cost of living adjustment instead of what's typical. And this really comes from council as well. Council was, really concerned about not taking care of the people on the lower end of the salary scale. So this is a really good way to, take care of everyone evenly. So typically with the cost of living adjustment, you take that person's wage and it gets X percentage, 5%, 2%, whatever it is, but it's based on that individual wage. We are proposing a flat COLA, which means we take one average wage for the entire city, which would be 75,000. That's right about where the average wage is for city employees. And then we look at the CPI and if we wrote in there that it can go up to 5%. So if next year CPI comes back at 2%, the COLA would be 2%. But whatever that is, that's based on that flat salary amount. And we did write it so that it is an average. So if next year, wages increase a little bit, it's going to be a new average, but it would be the same base number for all employees. So all employees would get the exact same COLA raise instead of having maybe $1,000 at the bottom and $3,000 at the top.
This was your staff report that was in the packet right here. Councilmember Bloom.
I'm just trying to figure out what I've just made a motion to approve. Looking at the resolution says the city council wishes to amend the city's total compensation principle. And then the attachments in that has the cost of living adjustment clearly identified, but then the pay for performance plan looks like a separate document. And then in addition to that,
we have the performance evaluation program guidelines in the packet. So exactly what is it we are approving?
So at the back of the personnel policy, there is a 6-page document, and that has been edited, and that's our total compensation principle. And that's the thing that speaks to raises and, you know, how we evaluate people. And that documents what's being altered. And the 2 key components that we're altering is implementing a flat COLA and changing the pay for performance rate. But it is the document at the back of the personnel policy. So it should be, you probably got something with a bunch of track changes, and then you got a complete document that you can look at that didn't have all the track changes in it.
Got a document. So.
Would it be appropriate to see what the Okay, so right after the resolution 6522, then you see total compensation principle. This is the complete done version. This isn't the document with the track changes. So you can't see the exact words that are
No, I'm just trying to clarify what's in the resolution.
Yes. So in
So-
that really speaks to how employees are graded on their performance and how that works back into their raise. So we are changing the 3 and 3.5% to a 4%. And that is the compensable thing we're trying to change there. And we're adding the flat COLA, which that language was never there before.
So we are approving the revised document, which is 7 pages now. 8
It probably is about that. Yeah,
9 pages long.
that sounds about right.
Thank you.
Councilmember Brand?
Thank you. So I just want to make sure when we're talking about the COLA, it is going to be based off of CPI, but capped at 5%. And it would be that percentage, whether it's CPI up to 5%, times 75,000. Is it going to be times 75,000 each time?
That part is where it's subject to change. It would be brought to council every time. That is something that, but we're trying to kind of attach it to a base wage. That's the point of it. Yes. And we have chosen an average wage for the city. My numbers are going to be off, but I think the average wage was like 74,597. So just rounded up to 75.
Right. And that would mean that, for instance, if the CPI was at 5% or higher, that no matter who the employee was, if they were paid if they were paid monthly with rather than the hourly, it looks like they would get paid a total of $3,750 extra.
That would be their cost of living adjustment for every employee, the custodians to the public works director. Yes. So this is our equalizer.
Gotcha. So then so the hourly would be just what it would be for hourly. It's
No, it would be the
equivalent?
same. It would be the exact same amount. So even if you're an hourly custodian, you would still get the 3,750, excuse me, would still be your cost of living adjustment for the year.
Oh, thank you. I just caught my brain, Fritz. I didn't see that it was divided by 2080, so it was the same thing.
Oh, yes. So that's
Um,
just bringing it out to hourly, just a different way to see the number.
Right. So then the maximum that somebody might be able to get is a 4% for performance plus $3,750 for the annual. That's the maximum that anybody would be able to get.
Through this process, yes. In the future, yes. But we did build, some adjustments in, like we had talked about, like the promotions, like the maintenance, but yes. Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Stoker?
Yes, so, and this COLA is expected to be an annual thing.
It is.
All right, so I took 8 jobs off of the salary schedule that we just passed. And, you know, for instance, I used the 2019 CPI numbers to be able to have something to work with for 2019 through 2022. And then I put in some bogus estimates for 2023, 2024, and 2025. So 2019, we had 2.3%, 2020 was 1.4%, 2021 was 7%, 2022 was 8.3%. 2023, I cut it in half to 4.2%. 2024, I did the same to 2.1%, and then 2025 to 1.6%. So what I find is that a custodian, starting at the base wage of $48,000 a year, in 5 years gets a pay increase of $23,500. In 10 years, I haven't got that far yet. Myself personally, I went back, I documented all my increases. I went back and reviewed it. I haven't done that well. And I started at much higher than that. So I'm struggling to see how, when I proposed this and I shared this with several members of the community, they're really struggling with this too. And again, I don't want to belittle our staff. I mean, they do a great job and I want to pay them what we can. But when everybody else, let's just say most of the members of the community don't get a COLA adjustment, it's a hard pill to swallow for people. And I said this last time and it didn't seem to go over well, but William Graham Sumner wrote about the forgotten man. And in my mind, the taxpayer is the forgotten man. And when he or she is covering these large increases, I'm sorry to say, it is a tough pill for me to swallow, and I think for many of our members of our community to swallow as well. Especially, let's just say it, those who probably don't make as much money as a lot of the people that I put together on this. I went from, I tried to pick varying different stages, went from custodian all the way up to the public works director, and 5 of the 8 surpassed their high point in 6 years. And I mean, we were talking before about, we put these ranges together so that they would be able to advance for a period of time, but 6 years is pretty short time, in my opinion, to reach that maximum and be out of your scale at that point. Granted, I understand in 4 years, we'll probably adjust it again. And so it'll probably never be met in that way, but with all things being constant, that's the way it worked out. So anyway, I'm struggling with this one. I feel, as far as I'm concerned, COLA is a great idea. Maybe they have the option to pick the greater of the two, their merit increase or the COLA adjustment. So that's what I have to say about that.
May I respond? So COLA typically is more around 1.2, 1.3, 1.5% traditionally, especially if you look back over 20 years. You do have spikes in the CPI. You do have spikes in the CPI when you have these sorts of instances in the economy, but we were not anticipating this to be, the next 6 years. We were really anticipating the CPI to adjust back down to the typical place that it is. And at that point, we are talking inflation, and it is a cost of living measure that everybody experiences. And all government has a cost of living adjustment, as far as I know. I don't know if, and I'm not talking about Kennewick, Richland, Pasco, but if we're talking government to government, I think it's pretty common, but no, we did not anticipate doing 5% the next 6 years, not even close. It's when you look at the 20-year history, it's much lower. It's more of a shorter term spike, and that was what we were anticipating.
Understood. And on my numbers, I only had 2 of them, 5%.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. I misunderstood.
Right. Well, I read the numbers off. Most of them are 2% or less.
Okay.
We just had 2, 2021 and 2022.
Okay.
And then I cut 2022 in half to get to 2023, 4.2.
Councilmember Blue?
Just one clarification. So an individual in their salary range gets a merit adjustment and cost of living adjustment. And if that would move them in the salary range, correct? Makes it will remain in the salary range.
Yes, the salary range itself wouldn't change.
Salary range would change with cost of living.
No, the salary itself isn't changed. The range will stay the same and somebody would move up through. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Smart?
Yes, so I think, the concern I'm hearing and I guess the concern that I have, it's not the salary ranges. And it's not specifically the COLA, it's the combination of the COLA, the, merit increase, merit percentage increase, or what do we call it, pay for performance, merit pay. And then digging in a little deeper, it's the scale that's provided to determine the performance increase percentage. So just to read this for the public, not meeting, it goes from 0 to 4%. And it seems to be highly skewed toward the 4% range. So there are 3, 4, 5 categories. And the bottom 3 go from 0 to 3.9%. I would call that possibly including 4 almost. So really just the bottom 2 categories can get you from 0 to 2.9%. Scale number 3 is meets requirements. So capable performance, meets the expectations of the position, a capable employee, and that gives that employee a 3 to 3.9% performance increase. And that I would hope would be most of our employees. I don't know what the penetration is into that scale, but then the next 2 levels, rating 4 and 5, highly effective and exceeds expectations, both still 4%. So this is really highly skewed toward providing staff with, 3 to 4% merit increase unless you're really messed up. And that, along with a 3% COLA or maybe just a 1.2% COLA, gets us up to that 4 to 5% raise in a year where I believe maybe I can only speak for myself and maybe some friends of mine that work out there as professionals in the area north of here. And, our raises are more like 2.5% to 3.5%, 3.5 is pretty rare. So this just looks like it's a pretty generous merit and COLA percentage scale. And I guess one of the ideas I had was, and this is maybe I don't want to say it's arbitrary, but it's up for discussion perhaps, or maybe it should be discussed in another forum. And that is that you could include the COLA, but basically have a singular pay for performance increase scale, which would be your COLA CPI for that year plus, let's say 3, or if you wanted to, maybe 4%, and then allow the managers to provide that performance pay increase based off of that scale. So the scale would change each year based off the CPI. There wouldn't be an automatic full COLA payment. I don't know. It just seems to me like this is highly skewed toward pretty generous raises, and for 1 or 2 years, especially in these times of high inflation, I see this there's a need for a correction. And I think we see some of that in most businesses. I mean, I know we pay higher prices at the grocery store, so everybody is going to end up making more money eventually in the next couple of years because that's just how the economy works. But to have the COLA applied in perpetuity, and this pay for performance percentage is skewed toward the high end in perpetuity, that's something that I'm not sure. I mean, you're feeling a little pushback here because I think it feels like we can't afford this, and that it's not congruent with the community that our public servants are serving. So I will end with saying that this proposal was, not to say that it's skewed in any way really, but it was generated by staff, for staff. And I'm wondering, like in negotiations with our police union and other venues of that nature, there's somebody sitting on the other side of the table. And in this case, it would have been the mayor, I presume, sitting on the other side of the table. I think that maybe there needs to be in order for, I will just put this out there that maybe council would be more comfortable with this solution, dare I say, a workshop or some other forum to discuss the details page by page. I will just throw that out there. I would not ever turn that down if there's a mutual feeling. But I am a little bit hesitant, given the feedback from our citizens and the actual numbers in front of us, to approve a pay for performance where the top 3 out of 5 categories includes the highest percentage, 3.9, I'll call it for, you know what I mean? So it just seems a little bit like that should be spread out a little further. To get 4%, I think that should be in category 5, and then it should have some sort of linear curve, maybe Gaussian, on the way back down. So I'll leave my comments there. Thank you.
Councilman Stoker again?
Yes, thank you. I remembered the email you sent me. I thank you for that. That was great. Now, you did say that not all departments have completed their end of year evaluations. So I understand that. I recognize that. Unfortunately, it didn't really say what ratio of the departments are done and what ratio aren't.
Oh, the majority are. We
Majority
have
are.
2 that aren't.
Okay, that, because I didn't know
Yeah,
if that
that's a
meant
pretty-
25% are done or.
It's still going to probably be about the same percentage.
All right, so in your response, you said that 47% of these evaluations have been rated as highly effective. Correct?
Like a 4, like the second one.
Right,
Yeah,
so that would
yes.
mean that 47% of the staff are getting 4 point, under this policy would get 4% raise.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go, right? So I guess here again, I'm struggling. I mean, I know our staff are great. I'm not trying to say they aren't. But most of the time in my career, I've met expectations. So that would be meets requirements level number 3.
Yes, number 3 would be your average employee that does a good job that you want to retain, that comes every day, not promoted, but not doing, a good employee.
Okay, if you want to interpret it that way.
Well, I've done a lot of training, so everybody interprets it that way, actually. There's a system here. If you're a 4
in my
and
scale at work, I don't have 2 more levels above meets requirements.
that's how we're going to decide how to promote from within. These are the extra things we can say. You're a great employee. The 4s and the 5s are worthy to be promoted within, as opposed to somebody that does great, but maybe they're not capable of more, but they're doing great at their job.
Well, I'm just saying mine's a 4-point scale versus a 5-point
Okay.
scale. Okay, so for me, I'm at the 3-point usually. I have reached the 4-point, but still I've only had 1 3.25 and 1 3% raise in 10 years. All the others have been less than that. So that's where I'm struggling with this. So 47% of all of our staff get a 4% raise. It doesn't seem like it's that hard to get them to me when almost 50% are supermen, superwomen, and that's great. I'm not trying to belittle, but just from my experience where I come from in the private sector, that seems really high. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We also have obviously different opinions, so I'm going to go for a roll call vote on this, if I may. I will ask for a yay or a nay, and I will start at the end with Councilmember Hayes.
Yay.
Councilmember Moran,
Yay.
Councilmember Fetto.
Yay.
Mayor Pro Tem Brink,
Yay.
Councilmember Bloom,
Yay.
Councilmember Smart,
Nay.
Councilmember Stoker.
Yay.
Motion carries 5-2. Thank you, council. Thank you, Selena. We'll move on to resolution 6622 personnel policy updates. This is item 8M. It's a resolution adopting changes to the city's personnel policies regarding vacation accrual, sick leave, cash out, and standby compensation. And again, Selena, your staff report.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, council. Please excuse me.
Need a water.
I'm good, but thank you. Okay, so this is talking about the personnel policy. Now we've moved on to more of a benefit structure of this. We put these together because these are traditionally considered non-compensable items or minorly compensable items in the benefits. A lot of it has to do, especially when you see the vacation, it's more about working schedules around to get time off for people. We had a couple graphs earlier that kind of highlighted, I believe one is in your staff report, that highlights the comps for time off. We're talking vacation, sick, and some roll it all together into PTO. And since West Richland was lagging in that, one of the requests is to add 20 hours of vacation across the board to whatever bracket they happen to be in. That changes it slightly so that right now an employee 1 to 5 years service with the city will get 6.67 hours of vacation a month. And then this changes it to, I think it was 8.33 hours of vacation a month. Sorry. 8.33 hours of vacation a month. So you can see that there's a slight adjustment there in vacation accrual. And then in addition to that, once you increase vacation accrual, we want to make a slight adjustment to the cap that they're allowed to carry over from year to year and to cash out. The current cap is 300 hours, and we would like to increase that to 400 hours. And then one other thing is that we do allow employees who meet this set of criteria to cash out 40 hours of vacation a year. And this would allow them to cash out 80 hours of vacation a year. And the things that we're looking for them, we want to make sure they have used vacation so that they're actually trying to get their bank down and that they still have enough vacation in there to cover them in case they have an event or an emergency and they're not depleting their vacation. So that's what we're looking at out of vacation accrual and the vacation benefit. The next thing that we're talking about is the sick leave cash out policy. So currently, we do cash out sick leave once an employee has been with the city 15 years, and that's the first marker that we get. We also will cash out $2,000 if they retire in good standing, or they've been with the city 20 years. So we'd like to create sort of a stepping stone to that and not have people wait 15 years before they can cash out some of that sick leave that they've been saving up. So now we would propose that if you leave the city between 6 years and 10 years of employment, that if you retire, so we're not talking about resignation, but if you retire in good standing, you could cash out up to 4,000 hours. And then if you've been with the city 11 to 19 years, you could resign in good standing. You could cash out up to $8,000. And if you've been with the city 20 or more years, you could resign and cash out up to $10,000. Now, this is providing you actually have that in your sick bank, like that value has to be there, and then you can cash that out. And then the final thing that we're looking at, this one is compensable. This is the standby compensation for the maintenance employees that are on standby. And standby is where you have an employee and you have a supervisor, and they are on call. They're on call 24 hours a day, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and holidays. So you have two people on call during that time, an employee and a supervisor. Now, the employee, they're the person that when they get the call, they figure out what's going on. And if they have to go to the site, they go out to the site and they handle it. And the supervisor is there to handle questions, issues, anything the employee doesn't know, they have somebody to call. So right now, what we're paying, we took the comparables, Kennewick, Richland, Pasco again, and we created a scenario. It's a very simple scenario as a way to compare these, but we said if somebody is on call for 1 week and they get one call out in that week and it's for 2 hours, that seems to be the minimum, what would everybody pay that employee? And so what we came up to was Kennewick, they would get $624. Richland would be $525. Pasco would be $690. And our current would be $355. So looking at that, we really wanted to shore that up with the rest of the cities, really to make this more enticing for employees to do this. So we have changed it so that now on a weekday, they would get $60 for the weekday and $100 for a weekend or holiday. And that same scenario would bump them right up to the comps and put them at $590 for that situation. And that is one of the more important things that the city has. And we want to value the employees that do that because they are locking down their time. They're not going on vacation for the weekends. They're being conscientious when they go to events that they're prepared to leave, that they're within 30 to 45 minutes of being able to respond and be at the city, and they're not drinking. So depending upon the employee, they're giving up certain things in order to do this for us. So that is the third caveat. So we've got vacation accrual, we've got sick time cash out, and then we have standby compensation. And that is a part of the personnel policy changes.
Thank you, Selena. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to comment on a personnel policy update? See no one in-house. Stephanie, do you have anybody online?
It looks like we have Miss Burt.
Bert, you have 3 minutes. Make sure you unmute. Go ahead.
Well, I'm very disappointed to see the previous vote.
This
And
comments in regards to the personnel policy update, ma'am.
I know I'm getting to that. I really hope that when you serve on the city council, that you listen to the public's comments when we take the time to come to meetings and come in and comment, or to seek out our city council members and give them our opinions, that you actually listen to them. It doesn't seem like you are all listening. You need to start listening to the community. Right now, the community is trying to tell you, we can't afford raises. We can't afford all of these things that you're giving yourself sitting there. This is what it looks like to the community. The city council members are sitting there giving their friends these raises while the rest of us are paying your salaries and are going without. Okay, we are the taxpayers paying you. You, the lady at the podium, we pay you. Okay, you are asking the taxpayers to pay. That's who's paying you. If we are giving you all these raises, that means us, the rest of the taxpayers, are going without. Our kids won't get to go play Little League. Our kids won't get to do things because we are giving you these big raises and more vacations, more this, more that. Let's have some cuts, pay cuts.
Thank you. Anyone else? I see no one's. Stephanie, is there anyone else on?
I do not see anyone then.
With that, council may have a motion for resolution 6422.
I move to approve updating the West Richland Personnel Policies, section 8.2.8 sick leave cash out, 4.10 standby pay, and 8.1 vacation leave.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion a second. Any questions for Selena or comments on yourselves? Councilmember Smart?
Yes, sir. My question is, I guess I need some clarification on the vacation cap and rollover. So is this? I understand the rollover. Let's see, you're allowed to. I guess my question is, is it a per year vacation cash out option? And
Yes.
And if so, is that really suggested to move up to 400 hours? Would somebody
Oh,
actually, no,
no.
that's the rollover amount?
Yes.
So what would the cap be on the amount that you're allowed to cash out? Was that the 10, I think so?
Only if you terminate service with the city, then you would get the max of whatever that is, the 400 hours. That would be upon termination. That's not every year.
But what is the amount that's allowed per year?
Per year is we're requesting an increase from 40 hours to 80 hours. Mhm.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stoker?
Yes, so, and I'm sure the cash out then is per the employee's rate of pay, correct?
Yes.
So wherever you are at, whatever your job position is, okay. Also, so if we compare Kennewick's PTO to ours, we're pretty much always ahead, except until after we've served in Kennewick 31 plus years. Am I looking at that correctly? Current,
Because you're comparing PTO to vacation and sick time, and sick time is highly limited. Like you literally have to be sick, whereas PTO can be used for anything you want and is generally saved for vacations. Yeah. So we have a cap on sick time of 960 hours, and we have people that hit that because it's short of having a surgery. You're only going to use a sick day here or there.
understood.
So yes.
So this vacation cash out, is this a common thing?
The 40-hour vacation cash out?
Correct. I mean, do all employees take advantage of this, or majority of employees every year?
I would say that no, definitely not the majority. But we do have certain employees that are in positions, specifically when there's no one to back them up, that they have a tendency not to take their vacation because when they come to work, they're just going to have that workload. So we do have a sect of employees that do need to use that to keep their vacation down. It depends on the year and the project, but it's a level of exempt employees.
So I'm assuming that because it's not mentioned, there's no cap on what annually you can roll over.
It's the 400 hours. So it was the
That's the
300, now
max,
it would
but
be the
each
400.
year, if I don't take a vacation this year, I could roll my whole 220 hours that we're proposing. to
Yes,
go
up
into-
to the 400,
Correct.
and then you would lose that. So if you only 400 is going to hit that paycheck in January, if you have 450, you're going to lose the 50. Just that 400 will be on there. And we eliminated the caveat that we had before that you could go over that amount with mayor approval. Because we increased the amount from 300 to 400, we waived that caveat. So now it is a strict 400.
That's, I'll keep thinking on the rest of these, but that's good enough. for
Yeah.
now.
Councilmember Blow?
Just for clarification, the current cash out amount per year is still 40 hours and we're not changing.
We are requesting we change that to 80.
documentation here shows the 40.
I'm very sorry. Let me see if I can maybe find the line where I have that, but it is requested to change from 40 to 80, so I apologize. I'll find my typo here. I'll assume I did that wrong. Oh, on page 2, you've got the grid, the West Richland vacation accrual at the top, then 1, 2, 3 paragraphs down. It's a relatively short paragraph. The ability to cash out 40 hours of vacation annually, and then right below that, cash out up to 80 hours of vacation time. It's the 3rd paragraph down on the 2nd page. Very short little statement. Easy to miss with everything here.
And I guess the other question I would have is sick leave is something that I do agree in including it, but also the question comes down to is if a person will take vacations, so sick leave, that's correct. For new employees, do we offer any flexibility?
Not really. With new employees, if they have, let's say they start and they've already got a vacation planned, we approve them to be not paid for that time when typically you have to use your time. We will not allow non-paid time. So I guess the flexibility is minimal. We have had people that have started immediately and had a surgery or had a major illness, and we have donated time in that situation. So we donate our sick time if somebody has depleted their time.
Donations.
And they really can't, like, there's a lot of IRS rules around that. We can't donate time unless they've depleted all their time. So that typically only comes into effect if somebody is newer because they don't have any vacation, they don't have any sick.
Councilmember Moran.
Thank you. It says in that part at the beginning where we're going to go from a maximum of 40 to a maximum of 80. And I was just reading the extra bits at the end of section 8.1, and it looks like we just got the one that already has the edits in it rather than the red line. So,
oh, yeah, you probably got the final version instead of the track changes. Okay.
Right. And so I just want to make sure it looks like it's not just a straight up, you can do 80 hours. It says in here, exempt employees may cash out up to a maximum of 40 hours per calendar year if they've been employed with the city for 36 months or longer. And if they have a balance of 80 vacation hours, and it goes on. And it's not just a straight up 80 hours. There are certain prerequisites that you have to meet as well. It's
Quite a
not
few.
just 80.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And then my other question is, and I'm not sure if this is something that we are even allowed to consider or not. I don't know. For the short-term leave, when it comes to the federal and also when it comes to the Washington state, how does that work with what this policy says that we want to change to?
The Washington State Paid Family Medical Leave, we will work with them. So if an employee chooses to go that route, which we obviously promote that, then they will get an approval letter from Washington State for that, and they'll basically tell them how much they're getting. And we are allowed to sort of, there's a word for it, but it's settling up the difference. And so we're allowed to basically make sure they get a full paycheck for that. And then there's people with intermittent leave. And if they're allowed to do that, they kind of call in like unemployment. And so if they worked 40 or if they worked 20 hours instead of 40, they would pay them the difference of that. So it just depends what kind they have, but we do try and work with Washington State on that.
Okay, so it wouldn't be like somebody could use a short term and they would get the pay for Washington and then they would get the full pay. It would be something where it wouldn't be double dipping. It would just be this, the city would be able to make up the extra amount so that they would get what they would normally get.
Yeah, if they
Okay.
qualify, we will work and we will, shore those up together. Yes,
Perfect. Thank you very much.
yes.
Councilmember Fetto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So last time we talked about this, there were some conversations about what other people outside of the city might get or might not get. So I just changed employers. I've been with my new employer for exactly 36 days. And as of today, I am accruing 11.26 hours per month for PTO. So more than the 8.33 we're raising our employees to. And I can roll over and cash out up to 320. Additional benefit that I get from my employer is I can use, because again, I've been employed literally for 36 days, I can use up to half of my annual allotment today. So if my annual allotment is 17 days of PTO, I can use half of that today, go negative until the accrual catches up. So again, I know there was some conversation about what places outside might get, what we get here. I would just to say this to me does not seem out of place. Especially after, again, I didn't realize this when I went through my HR stuff because you know how it is, there's this much paperwork and you forget all the things. All I'm worried about is how do I log in the system so I can start doing mortgages? I don't care about the other stuff. Let's just, let's go. But after looking through this thing and then looking at what we've got here, I don't see anything wrong with this policy at all. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Brink.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did have one question. The donation of sick leave is not articulated in this policy, correct, Ms. Smathers?
Correct. It's a totally separate policy.
Okay, all right. No need to go into that. I did note as I looked this over that it appears that the sick leave accrual, that the vacation time accrual is fairly close to the federal sector. In terms of what federal employees make, the times and service that they have to accrue the various rates. So it seems pretty consistent with that. I do appreciate the limits on the cash out limits with regard to sick leave and vacation time so that the city doesn't face an inordinate financial burden should a number of employees decide to leave. I'll just close with a comment just for everyone to consider. This is probably my third biennial budget. I think Councilmember Bloom has done a few more than that, as have Councilmember Smart. But every budget that I've seen is a very delicate balance between being able to provide our citizens what they need in terms of services, roads, police protection, community development, and so forth, infrastructure improvements, operations and maintenance. And the vast majority of our budget is spent on that. I don't know the percentage that our general budget is devoted towards salaries or compensation off the top of my head, but I suspect it is a very small percentage overall to our $100 million biennial budget. But my point is this: we can't do anything without the right people. That's the bottom line. Nothing will be done without having the right people, and the right people come by compensating them appropriately. So I support this package. I support the previous compensation principle. I support the salary schedule as it's outlined, because nothing will get done in this city if we do not have the right people doing their jobs, knowing how to do their jobs. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Brink, for your comments. Councilmember Stoker.
Yes, I do just want to bring up, so just for perspective, I had gone through Aaron's great report, the back sheets, when we were doing this the last time at our workshop. And so the vacation payout is, from what I could find, I don't say, and I got every one of them, but the vacation payout comes to $212,000 over the 2-year period. So, I mean, if we're looking at $4,000 average, it's 26 people per year who cash out in this vacation option. So
I do want to make a comment on that one. On that vacation cash out in the budget. I did, because I know some of the longevity of the employees that we have here.
So in that is some retirements. So just, we just throwing those in there to budget for, because what I'd rather do is throw the budget in there and have it in there rather than be surprised.
That's where the
So
conservative budgeting comes
I,
from.
I would
there.
say,
So
yeah,
thank you.
some of that comes from the, I think there's probably like 4 or 5 that I was looking at the longevity and ages and everything and programming where they might be in the retirement stage. So they're in this budget.
Councilmember Bloom.
I'm sorry, but I have to piggyback on that question. So if an individual retires and takes the cash out, we're still responsible for employment insurance and other benefit packages that cost the city. I mean, the other alternative, a person can be retired in place and just, in the Navy was called terminal leave. Yeah, and so we had all the benefits of being in the Navy, but you were elsewhere.
Can you repeat the first part of your question?
So is there a difference in costs in the city of someone cashing out their vacation time as compared to just simply not showing up for work for that period of time?
I think what he's asking is that you've got some people that will just burn through their time while staying on payroll. So then you're paying for all of the benefits.
Insurance.
Yes, their
It-
401
yeah,
matches, their
it's-
medical, their life
Cheaper to pay it
insurance.
out and then productivity wise, like get somebody in to replace them.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. The payout at the end is a good thing. Thank you.
It is.
Councilmember Smart.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to point out that if you cash out 80 hours, that's roughly equivalent to a 4% salary bonus. I think that's how it works out. If you divide your salary per year. And I take it that the cash out is that how the salary cash out, is that how the cash out is calculated? Is like annual salary divided by 2,000?
Yes, everybody has an hourly rate in the system, even if they're not hourly. So there is a mathematical way to get that. And then that's what we use for everything. Yes.
Okay, so I just want to point out that that's another nice bonus. Of course, it's also the fact that you worked an extra 2 weeks, so that may have prevented us from having to hire another staff member. So I get it. I just wanted to point that out for everyone's benefit.
It's probably not a lot of people that will qualify for that. There's a lot of criteria to actually be able to get that. So it's getting smaller by the time we are able to cash out 80 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Moran.
Thank you. I was just wondering with this sick leave, something somebody else said made me think of this cash out for sick leave of the maximum of $4,000 or $8,000 or $10,000. That is only if the person themselves resigns. This is not if they are let go for some reason. This is not something that would be included in the quote golden parachute that was spoken at the workshops. So
Right.
just want to make sure.
There's actually language about resigning a good standing.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Polite way for getting fired. Yeah. Okay. All right, council. So I'll have motion a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Okay.
Motion carried. Thank you, council. Now we're moving on to resolution 6722, amending the master fee schedule. Got Mr. Slade, if you have a voice left over there, you present staff report, see?
Give it a shot here. So on November 1st, we passed a resolution that amended the water system development fee and sewer system development fee. And one of our finance staff caught afterwards that there should have been 4 pages attached to that resolution. There was only 3. So one of the tables is missing. So what you have before you is the same resolution, but it includes all 4 pages. And what it'll do is repeal the previous one. So they weren't going into effect until January 1st. So this gives us the opportunity to correct it before the fees would have went into effect.
Thank you for staff taking note of that, taking care of it prior to the drop dead date. With that, is there anyone from the audience who'd like to speak to the master fee schedule? I see no one here in the audience. Do you see anyone's? Stephanie? Online?
I do not.
Have a motion, please.
I move to adopt resolution 6722, amending the master fee schedule for the water system development fee, water connection hookup fees, and the sewer system development fees, and repeal resolution 5522.
Second.
Motion and a second. Council, any questions of Mr. Slade? Very well explained, sir. Or Councilman Bloom?
Wasn't that good? No, the clarification. So these have not shown on the master fee schedule yet. We're amending a future master fee schedule as of January 1st.
Yeah, these will show and be effective on January 1st, 2023. That's correct.
What else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you, council. Item 8O is a motion to approve an extension to Mid-Columbia Library's contract to allow more time for negotiations. And with that, I'll ask Bronson to present a staff report in regards to that today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll just be real quick. As you know, staff's been negotiating with Mid-Columbia Libraries on a new agreement. And we are really close. There's just a couple items that we found out that we hadn't had an agreement on yet. And so what this does is this it extends the agreement for 90 days to allow us to just clear up come to agreement on those two final items. As you recall, in the contract we have at Mid-Columbia Library, there is a 1-year notice of termination. So technically this contract ends, the current one ends in a year, but we have to give them a year notice to terminate. So we're asking for 90 days extension. And you can anticipate, if council passes this extension, you can anticipate seeing something in the beginning of the year on a new contract.
Thank you, Bronson. Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item on the agenda? You see no one in the audience. Anyone online, Stephanie?
I do not see any hands.
Good, thank you. Council, may I have a motion, please?
I move to authorize the mayor to execute a contract extension with the Mid-Columbia Library.
Second.
Motion in the second. Any question with Bronson? Councilmember Pedo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Bronson, just to make sure I understood what I read and what you said, this now moves our 1-year timeline notice from from December 31st, 2022 to March 31st, 2023 for the 12 months to March 31st, 2024.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that clarifying question and answer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you, council. No unfinished business this evening or any new business, so this is another opportunity for the second citizen public comment. If you'd like to address council, please come to the podium, state your name and residency for the record, and you have 3 minutes to make your comments. Stephanie, do you see anyone online?
I do not.
That will go ahead and move on to staff and council reports. Is there anyone from staff that has comments? I see Mendenhall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I just wanted to first address Mr. Gill's comments on the bees. And yes, he and I met on several occasions. We emailed back and forth as well on some of his questions and concerns. I provided him with some resources with MRSC and some of the codes that they offer as samples. And he went out and put together a package. He and I met and talked about it. I brought that to the CD subcommittee as a topic because there's a couple of ways that you can bring a code text amendment forward. One is staff brings it forward Another is council sponsors a code amendment. And that's what I was looking for at the CD subcommittee level, and did not receive a support for that. So I talked with Mr. Gill, informed him that if he would like to see this code amendment move forward, that it would need to be done out of pocket and paid for, as anyone else would be that would like to see a code amendment. The other matter is that the complaint that he is referencing, if there is a code amendment done because the use is legally established, it would become grandfathered and would not be required to meet the new code as well. So I did mention that to him. We did have conversations about that. And so if he would like to go ahead and move forward with his zoning code text amendment, he can submit that application. We'd be happy to move forward and process that. The other item I did want to talk about as well is the Lewis and Clark Ranch. I'll just give you an update on that. I think I did this last time as well, but just, I know there's a lot of people online that weren't last time. So I just wanted to toot my horn on this a little bit, just to let people know what's going on. It is progressing. This is the land north of Rupert Road. We do have application in for a comp plan amendment that looks at the zoning. We are looking at the entire portion of the city that's out there and look in designating zoning for those properties so that we can plan for the future. Their phase one portion of the development has the potential to almost double the size of West Richland in population. So it's a very significant plan. There's a lot that goes into it. I appreciate Roscoe's work that he's been putting into it, making sure that we have all the transportation components, the water components, the sewer components. There's a lot that goes into this. Staff's been working very hard over last year, trying to get all of the questions answered, all of the impacts that may have addressed. And we're moving forward. We have a reasonable alternative. So through the SEPA process, there's 3 different alternatives that you look at. One is the no action alternative, meaning that you're not going to change the zoning. You're just going to let it develop with the current zoning. The second is what the applicant submitted. And then the third is what the city comes up with. And so we went out earlier this year, had a open house, did a charrette, which is a fancy word to say that we had a gathering, a get together with planners and architects and engineers. It was a great event. We had quite a few people show up that provided some input. We did an online survey, gathered some information off of that as well. That really fed into this reasonable alternative that we developed. And so that is online. It's on the city's website. You can Google City of West Richland, Lewis and Clark Ranch. That'll probably get you straight to that website and get you to the information. Or you can type in Lewis and Clark Ranch in our search bar on our homepage and be able to get there as well. But a lot of good information, definitely worth looking at, and love to get more community involvement and feedback as we continue through this process that we're hoping to wrap up in June to get the plan finalized by then.
Thank you, Eric. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. The first thing I want to talk about tonight is what Mrs. Humphries brought about Collins Road. I just want to assure the council and the mayor, we have conducted extra patrol. We continue to conduct extra patrol when we can. I run stats, here and there when it comes up again, make sure our officers are out there doing the extra patrols. Up until just recently, 2 weeks ago, we brought 4 people in on overtime and conducted extra patrols on College Road, wrote 16 citations within a few hours. So I just want to let you know, there's efforts being done by the team, and they're doing a fantastic job. So just want to bring that up. One of the other things I want to do is give a shout out to Jeremy Jones, the Pasco PD officer that was shot during an arrest last week. And just say best wishes and fast recovery. We were part of going over and just giving the assistance and being there for them as Pasco PD needed, in spite of me being on vacation last week. So shout out to the team. They did a great job helping out with Pasco as much as they can. And, with that situation, I also want to bring up and thank the young Marines as well as the American Heritage girls for coming out and decorating a couple Christmas trees in our lobby this year, because we had the the new PD, the new lobby. We wanted to make it kind of a winter wonderland, I'd say, in our lobby, and they came out and helped decorate 2 trees and did a fantastic job. We also have a giving tree in our lobby. That giving tree, obviously, this is a first for us because our lobby was always the size of just 2 people standing there in the past. But the giving tree this year is supporting our Safe Harbor. Safe Harbor is actually a nonprofit group that helps out with child abuse in the region and stuff. I just want to bring that up, as well as, because I'm trying to be quick tonight. We started a new thing this year with Cocoa with a Cop, where we are inviting the public in. Doesn't matter if it's adults, children, or whatever. We've had, I think, maybe 1 to 2 different groups a day come in to just meet with the cops, sit down and have cocoa in our lobby, which the Community Care Foundation helped us purchase. And we appreciate the support on that. It's gone over really well. Kids have come in away from school and everything else. So I just want to let the public know, please keep doing it. We're going to continue doing it through the month of December. We just really enjoy seeing the public come out and get to check out the new lobby and the new winter wonderland that we've created there. So anyway, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Council, any comments this evening? Councilmember Moran?
Thank you. First, I would like to thank everybody that has attended in person and online, those that have made comments. Thank you very much. And I would like to actually kind of add on to, in regards to the Collins Road speeding. Chief, thank you so much for the efforts that your department has put towards making sure that people that are speeding get ticketed for that. I do feel as if, and this is through no fault of the police department by far at all, I feel as if with the continuing of speeding there, even with the ticketing, it feels as if something more like a physical traffic calming type sort of thing might need to happen there, because just like the folks that had spoke, I still, even though it's been put at 30 and we have officers there, extra officers ticketing, I still have people, just like the person said, passing me on the left. I'm about to turn left at the top of the hill and they try and pass me on the left going almost 50 miles per hour, it seems. And it's just very unsafe, especially for those that have houses that are right there next to the road. So I'm wondering if there's anything more we can do traffic calming wise for that. I also would like to mention that I did notice, and I'm not sure where the correct place is to do. I'm sure there's a place online to mention it, but there were some pictures that I saw next door that there's graffiti on the cross at the top of Flat Top. So I'm not sure if that's something that the city would be in charge of, or if that's property owner that would do that. Property owner. Okay. And I also would like to note the loss of Mike Lawrence on Saturday. He lived in West Richland up until when he passed from cancer. He has been a major force in making the Tri-Cities be what it is. If you don't know much about him, the Tri-City Herald has a really great write-up on him. He was a very good man. Wednesday, on the 14th next week at 3 p.m., BFCOG is going to have an ex officios meeting with the Benton County and Franklin County legislators to brief them on the 2023 transportation priorities. Each jurisdiction that has projects, and I'm assuming Roscoe is going to be there. We're going to have 5 minutes, which hopefully we can get through all of them, for updates and answering any questions. And then for that BFCOG, Ben Franklin Economic Development District, we have no December meetings. So looking forward to having that time off. Thanks.
Like,
Let's see how long my voice holds out. So what's happening on Collins is not unique to Collins. We're seeing it citywide. I don't know what the issue is, and Chief can, we're seeing bad driving behavior, not just in West Richland, but all across the state. I attended the State Good Roads annual conference on Zoom this morning, and the number of fatalities, deaths, accidents on our state highways is attributed to bad driving. I don't, they try to tie it to the pandemic and people being cooped up, but it's something that's not just unique to Collins. And, we are spending we're still trying to work and come up with some you know, if you go back to what was presented to council, we've implemented all the short-term measures. The chief is putting a lot of extra patrols out there to write tickets. Anywhere he puts them out, we're writing tickets. The next step is the long-term one. It's in our 6-year plan, but it's got a $3 million, a $3.2 million price tag to put some of those traffic calming measures in that road. So it's on our 6-year tip. We will continue to look for grant funding or transportation to do it, but it's not unique to Collins. We're seeing it on all our streets. So it is a problem, and it's not just unique to West Richland, but we'll continue to do what we can and put resources to it to try to correct that bad behavior.
Thank you for that, Wasco. Let's see, we'll go to Councilmember Brooke.
First, I have to say that, you know, I come down Collins Hill quite often, and I also go up it. The roar of the engine is usually mine because I always downshift going down the hill. And both my vehicles will hold 30 going down the hill in sport. But the real question is communication. I don't think, you know, I remember my neighbor getting tickets going up Collins Hill. Both he got a ticket and his daughter got a ticket going up Collins Hill one you know, within a week of each other. And the question really comes down to is, are we seeing repeat family members, or is it construction related? Is it residents? I mean, that's really the question is who, I mean, you know, who's the culprit?
I have not checked to see if it's the same family members, last names. I don't usually check tickets for last names and stuff. So unfortunately, I can't answer that for you tonight.
My neighbors moved on.
But I will tell you that the time frame that we did it, where people going to work the other day, okay? So coming off the hill, they're residents. I'm not gonna say there wasn't a resident that didn't get a ticket or got a ticket that day. I'm just saying that's my perception of the time of the morning we were there, and they were coming out, leaving for the morning. So that was that specific emphasis.
Well, off of Collins, Yakima Basin Fish and Wildlife Recovery Board had its annual meeting, and while not outstanding, we actually had a few more fish come up the river this year. It is getting better, but the hope and the consensus is, you know, the fix at Bateman Island is something that needs to happen. The details of that needs to be worked out, and we're working closely trying to get a community win-win situation in that situation.
Councilmember Smart.
Yes, I just want to also thank those community members that voiced concerns and opinions tonight. I would absolutely encourage community members to come to multiple meetings. Don't just wait until you have a complaint or a problem, but come to understand some of the complexity and the overall holistic scope of the considerations we make when we make our decisions. I think that you can better appreciate the decisions that are made, especially some of the ones that we made tonight concerning budget and salaries. If you better understand, you know, the working situation of the city, and really the way to do that is to come to these meetings and persist and sit and watch and listen and learn, and maybe even run for office. Highly encourage that to those concerned citizens. We could use your opinion and your efforts. So as far as Collins goes, I also drive down Collins regularly, and I think that the 30-mile-an-hour helped because it drew attention to the fact that there is a new speed limit, and but I also have personally witnessed people absolutely speeding up the hill and down again. So I'm not sure how to solve it. Maybe we could take one of our old surplus police cars and park it in the desert to look like it's popular. Maybe we get a mannequin there, and that'll be a very inexpensive police presence for us, perhaps. I think because I say that, not all in jest, but I mean, one of the reasons that Collins is a great place to speed for those who are inclined to do so is because you can see, you know, that there's nobody there for a mile down this runway stretch. And there are blind spots, which makes it super dangerous, but people, I think that they're free and clear. So I encourage the police department. I'm sure they don't need any tips on techniques, but yeah, I also think that we as a community need to just spread the message that although there are maybe some undue restrictions on policing these days, given the laws in Washington state, that ticketing is not one of them, that you're still subject to getting speeding tickets. And I know West Richland, when I first moved here, had a great reputation. Well, I shouldn't say great, in big quotes, you know, of some percentage of its annual income being a speed trap down there in Van Giesen. But I think that it's incumbent upon all of us to impress upon our neighbors and our community members that it's a dangerous thing to do and it's irresponsible. And you're putting people's lives in danger when you're exceeding the speed limit. So thank you. That's all I have.
If you go through Soap Lake after the one police officer is off duty, his patrol car is parked at the end of the street with the mannequin in it. Yeah. Councilmember Fetto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two things. First, it was great to see the people inside the building with us, which is great because we're usually talking to seats and the clock, but also the people online. I did notice quite a number of comments on social media. I will only talk for myself. I do not engage in conversation on social media. So I know Councilmember Smart has said this many times. My email address is on the city website, dfetto@westrich.org. I am open for conversations, coffee, drinks down at Ties, whatever it is. If someone email me, if you have something you're passionate about, email me. We can set up time to do it the old fashioned way, sit down and have a conversation. And then also finally, Saturday is Benton County Fire District 4 annual food drive. It's their 21st annual food drive at Flat Top Park from 4 to 8, bringing non-perishable food. And they've got their trucks are decorated. They're gonna hand out candy canes. If you can't make it to Flat Top Park, the Bomber Range Station will accept non-perishable foods through the 12th of December. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Brink.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too appreciate the time that all the citizens that were here tonight gave. You know, you've been here, some of you have been here for 3+ hours, just like ourselves. But as Mr. Fetto said and Mr. Smart said, the comments made by citizens are listened to. We try to make our decisions based on the totality of information with what is best for the city. I encourage everyone, as did other members on council, to reach out to us directly, to reach out to staff directly, but communicate what your concerns are so that we as council can help work with staff to address your issues and concerns. The safety of Collins Road and other issues that were brought up are very, very important to staff and to council. So please take the time. I respond or try to respond to every email message that I get. So I encourage you to write me as well. Or as Mr. Fetto said, I'll be glad to meet. Just a couple updates. I will be attending a state emergency management council meeting on Thursday. I also will be attending an Association of Washington Cities Board of Directors meeting in Seattle on Friday. So I'll be conferring with other cities and states and the Board of Directors as to how they tackle issues and problems within their jurisdictions. Then finally, some good news. After about 1.5 years, Governor Inslee finally appointed me to serve on the Forensic Investigation Council for the state. So I hope to be involved with that. That council looks at the forensic capabilities of the state. And as all of us know, those play a great role in the successful prosecution of criminal investigations. So lastly, I had the pleasure of going with Councilmember Hayes to the Chamber Bucks Ball. I think Mr. Mendenhall, Mr. Slade was there, and I think Commander Clark was there as well. But it was a great event. But I mention that because there's another ceremony this Friday at the Mayfield not entertainment, gathering place to commemorate Councilmember Hayes's departure as executive director of the council or of the chamber, excuse me. So just wanted to pass that on to everyone as well. Mr. Mayor, I yield back to you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Brink. You stole my thunder on May's success in her career at the chamber. I went to the optometrist this week and I need a new prescription. May, how many years as the executive director for the chamber?
23 full-time and 2 years part-time.
So, you've got, it starts at 4:30 and goes till 8:30. So if anybody has opportunity to go visit, as Mayor Pro Tem Buell did when he did not rerun for election, he had all of the different events and meetings. So we'll look forward to how many parades that you fathered and how many good things in the park with all of the veterans and so on and so forth. Your career has been fantastic, and West Richland has been a great place because of you to come celebrate all the different things that we do with Veterans Day Parade, moving the wall, that was a big one. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So thank you very much from city staff, city council members, your years of service and commitment. And if we could only get you for about another 23 years on city council, you would make the city even better than what it is today. So thank you.
Well, thank you. That will never happen. But thanks. My comments were about the Chamber Buck Ball. It was so much fun. We had about 87 show up. We had 95 people that made reservations for it. So it was just so much fun. And everybody always likes to spend fake money. We were busy producing money, printing off money. But we had a lot of great gifts from the community. Different businesses donated, and so that was great. And then we also had the awards banquet, which was part of it, which is always nice to recognize different people in the community that do so much. The Community Spirit Award went to Carrie from Indulgences this year. And so that was really great. She wasn't able to make it, but getting the trophy to her and everything. So we're really excited for her. She does so much in the community that a lot of people don't even know what, how much she's involved. And so that was great. STCU got business of the 2 year. We did it for 2 years since we haven't done it for 2 years. So for 2021, 22, 20, 21 and 22. So it was just, and there was many other ones. It was just great event. So thank you for everybody that came and was able to enjoy themselves. And then David said, I was thinking Fred said, but David said about Operation Candy Cane is this Saturday. And so we work closely with them through the chamber and through Operation We Care Tri-Cities. And they bring all the food back to our location. And then as of right now, we have 16, 17 families, 72 kids that we're helping this year through Operation We Care. And then a huge thank you to the city. You guys have always stepped up and adopt families from us to help us out. And then Bikes for Tykes, we got 28 bikes from them. And then Knights of Columbus, we get our coats from them. So this community it's so heartwarming how generous everybody is, and everybody does their part to take care of everybody in our community. So it's been my pleasure to be with the chamber as long as I have. It's been a good ride, but I'm really excited to retire too. Thank you, guys.
With donations, where can citizens take donations to the chamber office or your gathering place or the city hall here?
Yeah, right now it's set up, they can bring it to the Mayfield Gathering Place, and that's where the chamber office is too. And that's where Operation We Care is housed too. So they can bring it there if you guys want to, where people want to drop anything off here. They also drop it off at the fire district, so,
We'd certainly be more than happy to take that and make sure it got to the right place.
okay,
Got boxes and boxes back there full of stuff.
okay. Sounds good. Thanks.
Councilmember Smart?
Yeah, just real quick, Mr. Mayor and Council, I wanted to ask, I've forgotten the last couple meetings to ask about our COVID emergency status. I know that as a council, we voted to have the mayor have emergency powers. Have those been rescinded, and can we, if not, can we arrange for that to happen?
It's on the senior staff discussion for tomorrow. The federal government goes out a little while longer. We haven't had any need to make any ascension right yet, but unfortunately, I haven't had to. And I don't act as the governor does and do what he wants to do just because he wants to do it. So.
And we very much appreciate that,
Yes,
Mr. Mayor. I
yes,
just
yes.
didn't want it to go by the wayside.
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
Have that discussion for the end of the federal time is up. We'll make the announcement.
Okay, thank you.
With that, we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 8:55. Thank you, council and staff. Appreciate it, as well as citizens this evening.